On the heels of the Great Recession, yet another bankster-led economic downturn, this one triggered by the housing bubble and speculative derivatives markets, Bitcoin emerged.
Thank God that a permissionless form of digital money was invented, because it happened just in time.
Fast forward a handful of years, Bitcoin was still the most well-known crypto, but many new networks offering different functionality and features had spun off. The cryptosphere at this time was framed by many as Bitcoin and altcoins, but sometime along the way things got more adversarial.
So do you see a scenario where crypto replaces banks?
Well, first of all, we get into the habit of saying Bitcoin and not crypto, because when you say crypto, it kind of is a generic term for 20,000 what we call shitcoins, Bitcoin wannabes. There's only one Bitcoin, so we just say Bitcoin.
Some say this group is shrinking, but others disagree. Just what is a Bitcoin maximalist or maxi? A nice way to frame it is someone who believes that Bitcoin is the only answer, but a more realistic way to frame it is someone who touts their closed-mindedness as a virtue, who has replaced their reason and morality by an imposture. Why would someone choose to be a Bitcoin maxi? It appears that there are three most probable routes: trauma, greed, and conformity. The trauma route.
If you have been, like me back in 2017, 2018, you got wrecked in crypto, take the time to learn about Bitcoin and learn about why Bitcoin is not crypto and Bitcoin is going to change the world.
This person has been around the crypto sphere for a little while and lost money while trying to make an easy buck. They chased the latest ICOs, they swallowed the hype. When most of those projects collapsed, they were hurt, financially and egotistically. They have not yet acknowledged this trauma nor addressed it, what Carl Gustav Jung would call shadow work. Thus they act from a place of regression rather than internal harmony. The greed route. This person may have previously touted the seditious or empowering aspects of Bitcoin, but has today replaced such idealism with a desire for material gain. They may be relatively unaware of this pivot, as they have merely aligned themselves with the marketing around Bitcoin.
Everyone always says that BlackRock's evil, all these companies are evil, etc., etc. But they are profit-making, incentive-driven machines. So wherever the incentive is, they'll go towards that. And the beautiful thing about Bitcoin is no matter what your incentive is when you came to Bitcoin, Bitcoin fixes you.
The influx of capital from the very institutions that had previously been decried is welcomed.
Bitcoin has won over some of America's best-known billionaires, and institutions worldwide are treating it as a serious financial asset.
After all, it'll further deepen their stacks.
Sell all your crap coins, put that money in Bitcoin, and just sit back and relax and get rich.
The conformity route.
I have a lot of hope for cryptocurrencies. I really do. I don't know too much about them, but Bitcoin seems to be the one.
This person is too intellectually lazy to do their own research. They're late to the game and probably haven't used Bitcoin before to buy anything. They merely hodl. They see Bitcoin as too big to fail and find solace in being part of a tribe. Harsh, yes, but untrue. Consider a newish phrase tossed around, being orange-pilled.
Going into Christmas, you got any advice for folks in terms of how they can help orange pill their family?
Essentially spreading and swallowing the gospel that Bitcoin is the only valid solution. But if Bitcoin really were the one true crypto, the best alternative to central bank money with all the necessary attributes, then isn't a red pill sufficient? A red pill, after all, demonstrates the willingness to be open to potentially life-changing truth. If someone breaks free from the matrix and is on the hunt for the best alternative to central bank money, shouldn't they, according to Bitcoin maxis, land on Bitcoin? Why do they need an orange pill? They need an orange pill because Bitcoin is not currently the best positioned to be the alternative. Hence, Bitcoin maxis need their own sacrament. It's more an outward manifestation that one has bought into the dogma.
So ask not what Bitcoin could do for you. Ask what you can do for Bitcoin.
But why even spend time on this topic? Bitcoin is still the most well-known crypto. It's what most of us first heard of, and if someone today decides to check out what crypto is all about, Bitcoin is still likely to be their first stop. If they encounter a closed, toxic culture, that's not good. So if an opportunity presents itself to have an exchange with a Bitcoin maxi, engage. While it may be hard to sway someone who is a true believer,
in this new world order that we're going into, the question is left, if not Bitcoin, then what?
Those on the periphery, and those new to crypto, may be more open-minded. A person cannot serve two conflicting ideas. They cannot work to serve humanity through the creation of an empowering technology and to serve their own love for money. The Bitcoin maxis have positioned themselves in the latter camp. Hopefully they will soon see the light for their own good and for the good of others. And let us, individually, always remain open-minded and always asking questions. Are we building the best alternative? What are other networks doing? What can we learn? What ideas are we advancing? What ideas are we serving?
Wonderful intro, as always, Pete. And if everybody hasn't already noticed, we are doing things a little bit different today. I am your host, Ryan Gull, and with me today is Pete and Hilawe. How's it going, gentlemen?
Doing well. Thank you.
Great. Good to see you.
So Amanda, who you usually see as my co-host, is switching roles today, and she is behind the scenes today, as Pete is on this side of the camera. So good to have you, Pete, on this side. I know you just recently were on a podcast with the Desert Lynx, Joelle, but I think this is the first time that you've been featured here on the Dash Incubator. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct, Ryan.
All right. Well, it's good to have you. So the reason that you two gentlemen are on today is I was looking at the, and actually I'll just go ahead and get my screen share ready here while I give this little intro. We're talking about a proposal that is about to be, I think there are 2 days left in the cycle for the Treasury proposal. I will find out in just a minute here. So yeah, so we're talking about this proposal today, the DashDAO Irrevocable Trust Next Steps proposal, submitted by Brian Foster. And I may want to just read all of this, or at least most of this. It is a pretty short proposal. It's just a governance proposal, so it's not asking for funding other than a reimbursement of the one dash. Here's where the vote stands right now. And let's see, does this show me how many days left are in the proposal to vote? If not, I will go ahead and bring up M&O Watch to see, because we are getting pretty close to the end here. There are 47 hours left. So this is the time to kind of get your last votes in for this, but also the other proposals that are on the docket right now. And as I noticed, as I looked through the proposal, like we've done this before where we have a proposal that's not directly related to the incubator, but maybe somewhat tangentially related to the incubator. But regardless of its connection with the incubator, it affects Dash in potentially a significant way. So as I was looking through the comments, I noticed that you both had, I think, the highest voted comments on the proposal. So I wanted to get you on the show to kind of get your thoughts on this proposal. So before I go any further into the actual proposal, maybe Pete and Hilawe, I'll start with you, Pete. What's your interest in at least saying yes to my invitation to come on the show?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is an important. I think this is an important topic. I mean, DCG Inc. has obviously been the largest Dash funded organization and the most well funded in terms of Dash over the years. And, you know, I realized some time ago when I was out talking to people about crypto and then suggesting Dash in particular and why it stands out to me, it's a little bit, I mean, I still think Dash has the best functionality around in terms of a payment-oriented crypto. But I was involved in another conversation. It was actually in a group that I'm in a metal music. And someone said, "Oh, check out this site for this band." And someone said, "Oh, that's still around. I thought that was like dead or whatever." And I'd seen that comment around like in the crypto sphere about Dash, like, "Oh, Dash is still around." And I wondered, why is that? And I think a large part of it is just that a big component that has been talked about since 2015, evolution, has, had delay after delay after delay. And I just wonder, well, why is that? And I'm very much someone who wants to strike the root and figure out the incentives around whatever structure exists. And it seems like the structure that was created around Dash Core Group, making it Dash Core Group Incorporated, along with the trust and trust protectors, just created a lot of perverse incentives. And so I think we now have an opportunity to make a change, make a clean cut, and move in a better direction for the network. And so I'll just stop there with that.
Okay, yeah, good introduction to your thoughts there. And Hilawe, what would you say? What prompted you to say yes to my invitation to come on the show to discuss this proposal?
I think you both know I've had strong opinions in the past about. I served as a Dash Trust Protector, DTP, from 2020 through 2021. I had a lot of experience in there about how the trust worked, how the trust protectors interacted with the DCG board, which were the DCG officers, and how MNOs perceived what oversight meant, what accountability, transparency, all these things that a lot of us came in with, how we were voted in as well, kind of calling for that. And yeah, and I don't want to get too far ahead, but I just noticed that, my idea of how a DAO would go and my experience as a trust protector just it's antithetical to itself. I saw the interweaving between a legal structure, keeping that going, and the ethos of cryptocurrencies, and it just didn't go together. And I just noticed that it was some kind of a status that was created that other Dash funded organizations or DFOs really didn't have. So, and this is not saying anything about people in there. It was just the system that I was noticing. And that's when I became more vocal. And so I've been keeping up with the trust, even though I haven't been a trust protector since then. I've been keeping up with how things have been going. So that's why I'm interested.
And you were you one of the first? Were you in the first cohort of trust protectors or a subsequent one?
I was probably on the third year of it.
Third year. Wow. It's crazy to think that we've been doing this for over, well, at least 3 years, but I think it's been more like 5 or something.
Yes.
With this structure, right?
2018.
Okay, so let's go into the proposal itself again, and I'm going to read at least the first few bits of it. Let's see. Okay, so what is this proposal specifically for? This proposal is being raised to highlight some of the challenges we faced with the trust that was created back in 2017 and determine how we should move forward. Dash Core Group Incorporated is a C corporation incorporated in the state of Delaware and has headquarters in Arizona. As with all corporations, DCG needs to issue shares, certificates of ownership, to one or more people or organizations. Given that DCG was created to support a decentralized network and does not operate to generate profit, and even if it did have profit, there's no person or organization that deserves the profit for owning the company. To solve the above dilemma, a New Zealand trust was created to own the shares of DCG and was to be managed by a board of Dash trust protectors who were to be elected by the Dash masternode network. The purpose of the trust of the DTP is to manage the dealings of the trust and oversee the DCG board of directors. This trust deed states that if DCG were to ever get dissolved, all remaining assets would get donated to the Red Cross. Okay, so, and then I'll stop reading there, but he then goes, he meaning Brian Foster of DCG, who's writing this proposal, goes on to talk about 3 of the problems that this is addressing. And you can read those problems, but as I had read this, the one that stuck out the most to me was just this problem 3. And it just, to me, it seems like this is the biggest motivation. Without a valid trust, DCG will not be able to verify our corporate structure to any further partner, future partner, and our standing as a legitimate organization is greatly jeopardized. So to me, it sounds like maybe you could jump in here, Hilawe, being a past trust protector. What was the original purpose of the trust? And is this problem 3 correct? Meaning that it seems to imply that we can't really partner with other organizations without this trust. Was that the original purpose, or what was the original purpose?
I think you're muted, Hilawe.
Hilawe, you're muted.
I did that. Okay. So initially there was a DCG Inc. C Corp created by Brian Taylor, and then he figured out, from what I could tell, he figured out he had 1,000 shares of DCG in his name and as a shareholder. And in his words, that's a legal liability that he did not want to take on. And also in his word, it should be something that you should find a way that the network has some interest in it. And so with his research and everything, he found this New Zealand trust system where it allows a group of people that may not be identified to be beneficiaries. But in our case, there's also a way for them to make their voices heard. So that's how this, it's a unique, it sounds pretty neat, but he created a system that would allow that would take the liability off of him. And so the part about verifying, so problem 3 kind of talks about corporate verification. And with banks, they do want to know that this is a company. So if you're going to hold bank accounts, you want to pay people in fiat, which was something that Ryan Taylor, that's another reason that he did it. Then he needed to find a way to involve the network in his mind, and also have the fiat, what he called fiat benefits. And then apparently, I mean, I've heard sometimes some of the integrators or like Coinbase may want to know that this is a legitimate project or legitimate group within a project. I'm not really sure. I've never really verified that. But there could be times where some partners do want to know that it's still operating in some way, that there's a central entity. Now, I can't verify that myself.
Okay. Pete, go ahead.
Yeah, if I could jump in, because this does seem to be the major crux that's remaining for the reason why the trust needs to exist. And I'll just back up. I had originally thought the trust existed.
What was, if you could just recap, what was the main reason that the trust?
The main rationale the trust needs to perpetuate is to have to hold the shares of DCG Inc. so that DCG Inc. can remain incorporated and therefore interact with business partners and the like. And I'll just back up, because a previous understanding I had was that the trust maybe provided some legal protection, for the DCG team. And I'll just say no one's putting that forward now, and I've learned that that's not the case from Patrick Quinn, former trust protector and interim DCG Inc. CEO, and Brian Foster acknowledged that as well. So that's off the table for anyone who was still of that perspective. So back to this point that we're talking about of the necessity of being incorporated to interact with business partners. I don't think that's the case, because, I asked elsewhere, I said, well, what do other decentralized crypto projects do? Does everyone have some form of incorporation? And so, so if we walk back this line of reasoning that the trust holds the assets, which Brian Foster and others at DCG Inc. say today is only the shares of the corporation. There's no other assets that are being discussed. So it's just the shares of the corporation. And then we ask, well, why do we even need the corporation? And so again, the argument put forth is that this corporation status needs to exist to interact with business partners. But, so then the question is, well, how do business integrations occur without that structure. And so I asked folks at Bitcoin Cash, Dogecoin, eCash, Firo, Litecoin, Monero, Nano, Zcash, other payment oriented cryptos, and they all came back and said, we don't have a centralized structure. Anyone's welcome to add us to like a SEX or this or that using our documentation. There's folks available for support or help if need be, but there's no central entity necessary. And that was repeated time and again by all these networks. And again, to speak to what Hilawe said earlier about the ethos of crypto, I mean, it just seems antithetical to need a centralized entity that's asking permission from these nation state regimes and paying them annual tribute to be able to operate. I think it just creates a target, were that ever to happen. And we could be much better served without that for a number of reasons.
Okay. All right. So if we jump back to the proposal again, there are these three problems. Just to summarize, the first problem is basically saying it's difficult to find people to fill the role of a trust protector. The second problem is essentially saying we've had problems with our existing trustees. We had a trustee in Switzerland, we had a trustee in New Zealand, and they're not working out for us. That's basically what that says. And then problem three is we kind of need a trust so that we can, so that DCG can have a corporate structure that people are comfortable with, and that we can then use, the trust was used as a way to give our partners proof that we're a corporation and things like that. And that was, so we kind of still need to trust. Now, moving on to the options of moving forward, there's an option 1, 2, and 3. And to just cut to the chase, let's see. I thought that maybe I was looking at a different version of this proposal, but I thought that there was somewhere that said DCG's recommendation. Is that on now, or
it's at the very bottom?
Okay. While other options have been discussed amongst the community, the DCG board had previously seeded. They were.
I believe DCG Inc. is in favor of option 1, which is a new trust without trust protectors.
That's what I remember reading, but I don't see it here.
Yeah, because option 3 isn't even an option, because both Brian Foster and Quantum Explorer have weighed in and said no one's comfortable doing that. So that's just, put up there as a semblance of an alternative. So the only options they're putting forth, in my opinion, are option 1, which is a trust with no trust protectors, or option 2, a trust with trust protectors.
Yeah.
Okay, exactly. Interesting. I just zoomed back out to see if there was something weird with the CSS on this site or something like that, which there is. So here is the DCG recommendation. Recommends option 1, like you just said. And it's I won't read option 1 on the screen, but there you have it. Did somebody want to summarize that, or did you?
Yeah, Pete kind of did. It just create a new trust with a single trustee. Right now they have a co-trustee, one Switzerland, well they did, and one in New Zealand, and no DTPs, no trust protectors, but it would have the option to include trust protectors at a later date if the network wanted it, kind of thing.
Okay.
And then option 2 is create a new trust again, and there's a reason that all these have to be new, but we can discuss that. Create a new trust with DTP oversight, just like the original. They claim it'll cost double. I didn't really look into why. And then option 3 is basically make it a standalone DCG Inc. So take away the overall structure above it and just be a Delaware C Corp, and that's it. And then the DCG board members would become the 100% shareholders between themselves. Okay. And then option 4 is what Pete had proposed inside the comments, which I'll let him speak.
Yeah. And before we get to that, I just wanted to make it clear to everybody what what voting means in this context. Brian does spell out what voting yes means. He says, voting yes for this proposal would be showing favor for option 1. And if this proposal passes, DCG would take steps to fully dissolve the illegitimate trust, retire the current or past trustees, and reject payment of the latest invoice from the Switzerland contact. Now, my understanding of an invoice from being a personal business owner myself is you give somebody an invoice when work has already been done, and that's owed to the contractor. I never have invoiced anybody when I haven't actually done the work. So I wonder if he means like a purchase order, because earlier in the proposal it says that we were able to regain contact with one of the trustees, which we had lost for some time. We regained that when he sent his invoice.
So can I clarify this problem too, right?
Yes,
I believe.
Please.
Yeah, so it appears, first of all, we didn't realize that there was a co-trustee even as Dash Trust Protectors until recently. So
and that's explained in problem number 1.
In the problem 2. So there was a co-trustee in Switzerland that basically left his employment. We don't know how he left. It really doesn't matter. The point is he left. He's not employed there anymore. And instead of letting DCG know that he left and they better, sign up with another trustee, apparently he forged his signature and then went to the other co-trustee, which is New Zealand, approached them and said, hey, you guys signed your co-trustee side to continue. And they saw this and they resigned themselves. They removed themselves as a co-trustee when they saw that legal liability. Mm-hmm. And so now basically DCG is entity-less, not at DCG Inc. level, but above them. The trust structure is basically defunct right now without a trustee. And this is why the proposal came out.
Okay, but do we owe anybody money right now in at least their minds?
That's for them. It's for them to answer, but it has been in the past where there have been months where we owed them and then we pay them later. So it probably is an invoice. So I'm not saying in this case that's what happened, but I know in the past there's been like 6 months that passed and then they would send us an invoice. So that could easily be the case.
Well, the language said an invoice for the following year's work or something like that. It didn't make sense to me, but that's a detail we don't need to worry about. So let's move into, do either or both of you want to just come out explicitly and say whether you're for this proposal, now knowing what yes means, against the proposal? It does say, I didn't quite finish reading it, but the other thing that it would do is reject payment of the latest invoice from the Switzerland contact. And then research will start on finding a new trustee to set up a simple trust with no Dash trust protector oversight and reissuing shares to the new trust. So that's what they're saying that they recommend. That's what voting yes would mean. What happens? What happens if the yes votes do not win? If this proposal does not pass by our criteria, what does that mean? And again, do you want to just come out and explicitly say, like, I'm for this proposal, I'm against this proposal, or I think that there should be something else considered here? First, Pete.
Yeah, I think Brian did answer your question about what happens if they don't get enough yeses to pass. And he left a comment in response to a question Amanda had about what voting meant. And I believe Brian just said that, if the proposal doesn't pass, they'll evaluate what comments came in and maybe put forth a subsequent proposal. But yeah, I'm very much not in favor of option 1, 2, or 3. And as Hilawe mentioned, I put forth an option 4 in the comments, which is for DCG Inc. to become DCG for a lot of reasons, to increase nimbleness, accountability, communication, morale, alignment with the ethos of cryptocurrency, etc. And if I could, real quick, I made like a 2-minute video just to try to underscore that point. I'll just share that real quick.
Yeah, please do.
Okay, thanks.
And so now what we're trying to do is fix ease of use and adoption. And this brings us to Dash Evolution.
The piece de resistance of Dash is a forthcoming product called Evolution.
Using the Wayback Machine, here's Dash.org in 2017. Note there was a tab in the menu specifically for Evolution. On that page it says, our next step will be to release an alpha version of Evolution toward the end of 2017.
Speaking in terms of milestones, this year what we want to do is by the end of this year is release some form of the Evolution platform that developers are actually able to work with.
So let me know if you have any thoughts one way or the other of Dash Evolution. Granted, they've obviously been talking about this for over 2 years, it's 3 years now.
Again, using the Wayback Machine, we visit the Dash.org site, this time from 2019. According to the roadmap, Evolution functionality was slated for release that year.
Is Evolution ever coming?
How confident is DCG that a platform MVP release will happen this year?
Yeah, I'll take that. I'm very confident.
We need to make sure that in parallel to all that, we start to deliver on time. We've got to make sure we improve our credibility as a professional software team to deliver software when we say we're going to.
When we will have a functional platform?
Good question. So you know the first 5 planets, like Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, and Jupiter. We have to have them all align. No, I'm joking.
And now when we look at the current roadmap at Dash.org, the V1 rollout is included, but no date is given.
Evolution is 5 years late, which is at this point, and they haven't been defunded. It's kind of like, well...
It's a little nuts if you think about it.
What was the point in having a DAO?
Yeah, so I put that together, and there was a lot of other clips I could have used. I could have made a parallel video that wasn't about evolution, but was about we're going to do better with communication. We're going to do better with communication. And that's something that a lot of former DCG employees have said, like it was, or people who tried to interact with DCG, especially previously of the difficulty in communication. But for me, it just comes down to accountability. And if this product has been promised for so long and there's been no accountability, I believe a large part of that is due to the structure, the insulating nature that DCG Inc. has been afforded by the trust and the trust protectors. When the trust protectors were created, Ryan Taylor blogged about it, and he said, this provides a valuable new option of oversight of DCG beyond which can be done provided by the proposal system alone. So, why is that necessary? And other writers put forth that the trust protectors would allow surgical precision to adjust to remove whomever or whatever is, but obviously that's not the case because the trust protectors had to interface with DashCore Group's board, which was made of DashCore Group Inc. employees. So the incentives are just not there. And so DCG, as Sam Westrich, Quantum Explorer, CTO of Dash currently has put forth numerous times, it's not fair to hold him and current employees accountable for past employees' failure to deliver. And at one point, he made an analogy that said, well, if you hired a plumber who made a mistake on your house a couple of years ago, and are you not going to hire a new plumber and believe that they could do something different? And I grant him that it's not appropriate to say he or his current colleagues should be vilified or anything. But if we stop there, then no one improves and nothing improves and we just get the same. But so we need to ask, why has this been a pattern and why has this existed? Why has no accountability happened? Why has DCG Inc. been allowed to continue to skirt along? I found an interview with Ryan Taylor, and he said at one point there was 23 people working on Evolution, not including project management. So they've had massive resources allocated to this endeavor. And those of us involved with Dash for a long time have been talking about it, and it just has failed to materialize. And I know maybe we're getting closer now, but Evolution's not even used as the name anymore. So anyway, there's been mission creep, there's been unaccountability, and I truly believe that the legal protections that DCG Inc. enjoys because of saying the trust protectors are an accountability mechanism when clearly they weren't, and they became so frustrated and as a way responsive to the discord within the Dash network that a couple of years ago, the proposal was put forth to make DCG Inc. more granular. And that resulted in a lot of good conversation. But again, here we are today, and DCG Inc. wants to continue course as they've operated for years, and it does no one any good. I think now is the time to move from DCG Inc. to DCG. And, the biggest critique of that is we might lose some top devs, or how are we going to attract top devs? And I mean, I just asked that person asking the question to read Frederick Bastiat's The Seen and the Unseen. I mean, yes, we may lose some current folks that are unwilling to be paid in Dash, but we probably, in the long run, yes, that there may be some uncomfortableness in the short term, but in the long run, we'll be better off for it because we'll attract people that are aligned with our mission and not happy to say they're working on a product, but not willing to use it themselves and not willing to recognize and learn the pinch points that we all that do try to use Dash every day for our lives experience.
Yeah, great points and great little video, as difficult as that is to watch. I think the overall assumption is that the trust mechanism has something to do with this underperformance, and I'm not sure if everyone would agree with that. I myself would have questions with that, but your point about alternatives potentially being better than the downsides if we got rid of it, that is a very good point. I know in the incubator, to bring this a little bit back to home, we've just decided, Andy initially, and I was fully on board with this decision. We're not going to touch fiat. We're going to use our product 100%, regardless of the pain that creates. Whether that's, we don't have the developers that we might get if we could pay them in fiat or whatever that means. We're going to work through those pain points. And I personally, I think it's a good thing to do because I, for example, I'm using Spritz. I'm using all sorts of services that help me to do those conversions into goods and services, or even into dollars, and that helps those partnerships as well. So, Hilawe, what do you have to add to what Pete said, or the video, or thought?
I'll go through my thoughts on the options, which one I like, but just want to add.
Sure.
The problem one was about DTPs not wanting to serve. And it wasn't a matter of whether they were paid or not. We had a lot of great efforts to push a dynamic roadmap, meaning it changes as needed. You prefer that it stays, but these things change. Clear deliverable dates, that's the big one. And I'll try to address that. Again, it's not targeting people, personnel. I just don't want to go there. It's more about the system did not allow us to even to do that, to actually get those results. And it's kind of demoralizing at some point. And then we also found out the MNOs did not actually want change. They wanted us to kind of wave, point a finger, say, hey, do better. That was probably the extent of the role that was preferred based on decision proposals we put in. So, and that was clear to us. We were asked in so many words and so many votes to not be that active. And this is well, what's the point? So just wanted to add that part about problem one. And that's why you don't have DTPs anymore, along with the self-doxing that you have to do. So clarify that part. So as far as the options, so option one and option two are very similar, one with DTP and one without trust protectors. Option three is standalone. I also prefer option four, which is basically DCG without a corporate structure, but being paid directly from the network in Dash, instead of paying out employees, contractors in fiat. Because definitely it is more convenient, but I think the work to do that, whatever you need to do with the Dash, should be up to the individual. Right. And that's something you brought up yourself. Ryan, because I think we saw Pasta and Latte express this as well, because we were asking them in the Trust Protectors channel in Discord, what would happen if you got paid in Dash? And they said the complexity would go up. And I don't want to get into Latte's business, but his complexity would be even more. And there's residency issues and all kinds of things, and things that he needs to show wherever he lives that he gets paid from a so-called legitimate source and all these things. And none of them said they can't do it. It would just be highly inconvenient.
Right. Which that kind of inconvenience is a benefit in a lot of ways.
Yes.
If I were being paid in fiat, I would not be using Spritz, and that would be not good for one of our key partnerships. I don't know if now is the right time, but we've had some comments come in. So Amanda, do you want to? So Amanda asks,
can I just add like which option? But there's a fifth option. I think we need to address that. Sorry,
okay, go ahead.
Yep. Because if we don't address that, and it goes to the end of the video, people may miss it. I just want to make sure that gets in. Sorry to take over.
Let's do it. Yeah.
Okay, so the DIF, the Dash Investment Foundation. So Agnew Pickens just, he threw in a comment in the DIF supervisor Trust Protectors channel. He said, "What if the DIF owned DCG Inc. shares, all of them?" And it was like, whoa. And then I think Brian Foster eventually saw that. He was like, I'm going to have a meeting. Eventually, he said, I'm going to have a meeting with the DIF to speak on that. And basically, what would take is the DIF supervisors voting on it, but first discussions, obviously. And so I went into the Dash after party. Everybody's invited to come in. Just contact Joel, and he'll give you the link. Anyway, so it voted in. Some of the comments we heard in the after party were really good ones. From one time was, will the DIF supervisors be expected to somewhat act as an oversight role? Is this like a pseudo trust protector role? Or is the DIF director, now the DIF director is paid, I think it's a lawyer. Will he be expected to watch over the company? I mean, it brings in a lot of, and then also will being a DIF supervisor now become not worth it? Like, is it scrutiny? The network is very much interested in how DCG is doing. And now basically it still creates what Pete is saying. It creates just another layer, another structure, another, in my words, a special status. And I would say the short answer is whether a DFO Dash funded organization is funded or defunded should be the only thing that matters in the DAO. I would say that's that. So I would go with probably option 4. If option 3 happened, yeah, not ideal, but at least it's not interlinked with the legal structure. The DAO is not interlinked with the legal structure then. At least that's a good thing. And option 5 is, I would call it less like a quick solution for DCG. It actually, for DCG,
DIF, right?
I'm sorry?
Option 5 is involving the DIF.
Yeah, the DIF would have 100% share ownership. Now, remember, the DIF supervisors don't go into, they have partial ownerships of other companies, right? They don't go into their management meetings and tell them, this is how we want you to run things. That's not how it works. So it's creating some complication, more complexity for the DIF. So,
yeah, maybe Amanda, if you could switch over to my screen share, just so that we can get some of these comments on the video. I noticed that the DIF did comment, so I'm just going to scroll through that. So they basically made clear that there's no overlap between Dash Core Group and the DIF, and I'm not sure exactly what that implies, but there is that. And here's this option. There's a different option 5. And so you've got comments from you, Hilawe, and obviously a lot from It's Demo. He's very talkative. Quantum Explorer. I think Pete, do you have anything to add while I'm scrolling through this? I just want people to be able to kind of stop and pause on some of this stuff, but
sure. I'll address Amanda's question that she's put forth, which is, can she says folks can work with the incubator without having to dox themselves. Is that the same case for DCG Inc.? And I believe the answer is no, because I did see in the comment thread on Discord about, that Hilawe mentioned that involves some current DCG Inc. employees, how open they would be to this option 4 and it was stated, one of them said that, currently the only people who know my true identity are DCG Inc., is DCG Inc. So I believe then that means they had to self-dox to, be employed there full time. And that is something that was mentioned, but I'll just reiterate with the Dash Trust Protectors. I mean, if we're supposedly creating a medium of exchange that we want to see used by anyone, anywhere in the world, why do we have an entity, the Dash Trust Protectors, that excludes people that happen to be born within a certain political jurisdiction, something beyond their control, just like the amount of melanin in their skin? But that is a structure that is included in option 2. That is a question. If you're born in a certain area, you cannot be a Dash Trust Protector, or if you happen to be labeled a quote unquote felon by the regime, then you can't be a trust protector. But I'm sure we all know people who are quote unquote felons that have never harmed person or property, but they've just disobeyed the regime and their legalese. So these are just more reasons. Again, to emphasize, to underscore what Hilawe said, I'm not trying to attack specific people. I just think it's important that we look at the structure and the systems and the incentives that it makes. And so I'm just saying we should simplify. This was a line in Thomas Paine's Common Sense. He said the more simple anything is, the less liable it is to be disordered, the more easier repaired when disordered. Henry David Thoreau said in Walden, simplify, simplify. We all know the KISS principle, keep it simple, stupid. That was popularized by the Navy in the 60s. Again, these are just all little mantras against phrases against overly complex bureaucratic and organizations. And that's what we have with DCG Inc. And I very, very much hope that Masternode owners will see that the best way to move forward is to remove the complexity that has surrounded DCG for all these years.
Yeah, thank you for all those thoughts. So I missed some of the comments that you're popping up on the screen, Amanda, but it looks like Digital Cash Network is saying we've got some alternatives, alternative structures. One of those being the Utah DAO, which I can look into if we really need to. That was brought up by one of our Utah conference attendees, Tron, not any way related to the Tron network, but yeah, he's been in crypto and we're good friends, Tron and I. So I could definitely look into that. See, Amanda adds, some devs leave DCG Inc. because they don't want to be paid in Dash. Might we not gain new devs who wouldn't have been willing to dox themselves to a corporation otherwise? Yeah, that's a good point as well.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the unseen I was trying to speak to.
Yeah. I think it was clear that DCG board members would be especially doxed. So, for example, Eugen does work for DCG, but not for DCG Inc., right? He's independent, actually doesn't yet. If he wanted to, he could get paid in Dash. I don't think he gets paid. So, there's ways of doing this already where you don't have to be exposed. But I think as an employee, the government will know that you work for DCG Inc. But if you work for DCG board member, then it'll be public. I think that was the point that was being made. I think Pasta was concerned in the Discord, if he became a DCG board member, it would be a whole lot more public.
Yeah.
So.
Well, we've talked a lot about the downsides to this proposal and alternatives that we'd like to see. I would like to just say that I'm happy to have Brian Foster come on the show as well on a subsequent visit if he's interested to give his side of the story. That's something that we've done in the past. If a proposal is important enough, we get both sides of the I mean, there's a lot of sides to this particular proposal. So I would also encourage other people to put in specific proposals yourselves with, I support this option or that option, because with the blunt tool of the DAO that we have, that's really the only way that we can move forward, is to have proposals. So one of my main issues with this proposal is, yes, it's a proposal that brings up an interesting topic, but it's unclear how we're going to move forward, because as it stands, I personally don't think that it's likely that it's going to pass. But what's that going to mean? There are, at least 3 or 4 different options that we could pursue. And so without proposals for those options, it's hard to see what we're going to do. And I'd like to know from DCG, what are they going to do if the proposal doesn't pass? Are you going to pay the invoice that was sent? Would you do that from your own Dash core group funds? He didn't spell out what would happen if the proposal didn't pass, is my main point. Anything else to add, guys, before we wrap this up?
One thing I would add is that both Brian Foster and Sam Westrich have commented that maintaining the trust isn't supposed to be a DCG Inc. prerogative, and but the fact that they are allocating bandwidth to this effort in the past, and the fact that in the past, Sam Westrich has said that if a proposal to fund the trustee doesn't pass, then DCG Inc. will pull it out of their coffers. I mean, that to me just shows how sort of insidious or how necessary DCG Inc. views the trust to perpetuate their current structure. And I think if anyone watching has been long involved with Dash, cares about timely deliverables and effective communication, I think they should realize that we could do better and we should demand better. And so we should not support these options to perpetuate the trust or any extra legal structures around DCG.
Well said. Hilawe, any closing remarks?
Yeah, I mean, doing the hard thing, like separating the DAO from any legal entanglements, it only makes us stronger. It's about anti-fragility. I think the DAO grows stronger by basically, we grow stronger from adversity, and we become very fragile when we're legally tied to some structure like we have now. And I guess it's a matter of, is it convenience, or are we giving up so much just for convenience, or for the short-term win, or should we really look at the long-term win? And that's why I wouldn't vote option 1. I feel like it's just continuation of what we have now.
Yep. All right. Well, with that, let's see. One more comment here. Amanda says, yes, people should put in their own proposals if this one doesn't pass. Brian Foster's comment on Dash Central: if this proposal does not pass, we will have to evaluate the comments and reasons why people felt that option 1 was not appropriate. And we or someone else would have to submit new proposals. So yeah, I would encourage people outside of DCG to feel like they can and even should put in their own proposals regarding this topic. So with that, I will say thank you, gentlemen, and we will see what happens to this in the next 48 hours and go from there. Thanks, everyone.
All right. Much love.
Bye.